Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So, like Jim, I'm not a native English speaker, so I'll do my best. But today, I just want to talk about some of the challenges that we face within Schlumberger in terms of our operational integrity projects, in terms of reporting process safety incidents, and also I want to touch on a little bit about one of our segments' approaches to how they're dealing with process safety. And also looking at some of the challenges that we're facing across the board. So with that, I'll move on. Just a little bit about Schlumberger to start with. It's the largest oilfield service company out there today. We've grown significantly since particularly in the last 8 years, where we've grown from 50,000 employees to 127,000 employees today. So with that brings on obviously a lot of challenges for us in terms of managing the new companies coming in, new processes, new business lines. So I'll touch on that during the presentation as well. Also, in terms of our business lines, in 2004 we had 6 different business lines. Today we've got 18 different business lines. So I just want to look at, if we move on, so I just want to touch on also why we're failing to stop some major accidents. These are some of the key findings that have come out in recent incidents within Schlumberger over the last couple of years. And I'll just touch on a recent incident we had in 2012, where leadership was one of the keys there, where we had a very experienced oil field hand, 30 years experience, and we made some wrong decisions. But the problem we had was that our junior employees, our guys new to the company, were very reluctant to challenge those decisions. And that's, I think, an issue we've got across the industry today, where we've got new employees coming in, inexperienced, we've got very experienced 30-year hands, etc., and there's a reluctance to go in there and speak up at that stage. So that was one of the issues we had. Also, where we're working on rig sites where we've got multiple contractors, there's issues about equipment ownership, which we had in a recent incident where we didn't have adequate procedures, we didn't have adequate procedures for the use and maintenance of equipment. And this because there wasn't any real ownership of that equipment. There was confusion about which contractor had actually owned the equipment, and this resulted in a major contributing factor to a major incident. So these are some of the challenges we're facing. So on the next few slides, I just want to talk about a little bit about how we're addressing some of the factors that we see up there today and how we've moved on in the last 2 or 3 years. So just a little bit also on our operational integrity program, which was a program that was launched by Schlumberger back in mid-2007. And this was basically looking at our service delivery, looking at our product reliability and how we're going to tackle that in a more structured way. So we put together quite a structured team, looking at, consisting of product managers, looking at deep water themes. We had segment input from our 18 different segments. We had rig operator input through our IPM group. So, and also industry input through our industry affairs. So a very sort of dedicated, structured team was put together really to start looking at operational integrity within Schlumberger. And the natural progression was into the well integrity barrier standard that we moved onto, which we started to look at in mid-2010 within Schlumberger. And that was, the reason we did that was that we identified we had a lot of issues in terms of how we were managing that at the time. We had different terminology between the segments. We had no clear minimum corporate expectation on how we deal with well integrity barrier control. We also had requirements where well integrity was embedded much lower down in the hierarchy of our quality management system. And we also identified a number of competency and certification gaps within our well integrity structure. So this resulted in a very detailed rollout of that back in mid-2010. One of the first phases of that training was to look at the initial training phase, which was the initial sort of familiarisation with well integrity barrier control, the initial training package. And then we went into phase 2, which was a more detailed training package aimed at our different segments. So each segment within Schlumberger where well integrity, well barrier control was a factor, was responsible for then putting together their own training packages to deal with that particular business line or segment. So we ended up putting around about 35,000 of our employees through the first phase of that training, and now we're going through the second phase of that training package. So it was very much a focus for us post-Macondo, and we implemented some very good systems and processes to ensure we captured that. So in terms of how that fits into our current management system structure, so we obviously have our corporate HSE policy as our frontline document, and that sets a high-level statement within Schlumberger. And then we have our corporate standard, which establishes those minimum expectations that we expect, right? And below that, we have the 18 different segments with their own requirements in terms of barrier control, and they have different technical requirements, obviously dependent on the segment. So we had a very structured approach, and we obviously have SOPs, risk management tools, maintenance manuals, all those types of documents also form part of that whole process for us. So also just looking at the project scope in a little bit more detail, so we focused on people, we focused on equipment or plant, and we also focused on our processes. So we were very keen not to develop anything new. We already had some very good tools within Schlumberger to deal with these systems and processes and people training. So it's just a matter of expanding those tools to really fit into what we needed to cover. So, for example, on level 1 awareness training, which I've talked about, we had 35,000 employees go through that training already. Then we had level 2, which was more technical training aimed at the specific segments within Schlumberger and more involved with those people involved in the design, etc. And then we had a level 3 type training, which was a train-the-trainer type scenario. Competency we addressed, and I'll talk about that in a little bit in the next couple of slides. We also had what we call our Q-Stop, which is our stop work program, and I'll touch on that also in the next slide or two. Design, we had a look at design, construction, selection of equipment within our product line standards, references to industry standards, etc. So that all formed part of the equation. Purchasing, we had over 100 critical suppliers of well barrier equipment within the Schlumberger organisation. So we had to obviously set the guidelines, and we had to make sure that we set the audit protocols, etc. for these contractors and make sure they understood what our requirements were. So that's been a very big process for us as well. We looked at risk management and management of change as well. So it was a fairly detailed project scope, and we're still on a journey in terms of that project scope and working through those particular elements, but we've made a lot of progress in the last couple of years. So I just wanted to touch a little bit more on a couple of very important tools for us, which is our proactive well site reporting tools we have within Schlumberger. We had a very good system that's been in place now called our observation intervention reporting. This has proven to be a very powerful tool for us in terms of preventing personal safety incidents. And really what we wanted to do was expand that to look at process safety as well. So we did that, and I'll show you in the next slide how we've expanded that. So it's really much a tool for our frontline managers, for our supervisors. It can be used any time from engineering to execution and anywhere at the well site or the project office. So a very good tool. We managed to track that very effectively within our Quest management system. So we can look at how many reports are being raised. We can look at what areas those reports are being raised. We can look at all that type of scenario, where they're being raised, what typical subjects or topics are being covered in those observation intervention reports. So it's the other one is Q-Stop. So this is our systematic approach, if you like, to stopping the job, ensuring that there's no service lapses in service quality and safety. So again, this is a very prominent program within the Schlumberger organisation. So again, as Jim mentioned, it's about personnel having the authority to stop the job and any activity that is unsafe. Line management fully supports that process. And again, we have senior management signing off on that, much like Jim's shown in his slides. But obviously we require also the client support to actively engage that process as well. And that's still an area that we've got to work on. So as I mentioned, this is just expanding a little bit further. This is a recent development we've put into our Quest management system. So what we created was a specific tool to look at well site observations. So we basically set this system up in Quest, and this allows us for easier tracking and identification of actual well site events which are happening. So previous to this, we weren't really able to, unless we did it manually, we weren't really able to break out the events that occurred at the well site opposed to our facilities. So we weren't really able to differentiate between the two unless we really went through it manually. So this allows us to now more easily identify those events that are occurring at the well site, and also to make sure that we can track them, identify them, and more importantly, to analyse and fast-track any changes we need to make as a result of those observation interventions. So just to give you an example, in Europe, Africa last year alone, we had over 3,000 field visits by managers to the well site. So part of that field visit requires observation interventions to be generated, as well as to doing formal inspections. So we have a lot of focus and attention by senior management, by our supervisors at the well site, which is what we need. So just touching again on competency and our learning centres. So within Schlumberger, we have around about 5 learning centres out there stretched across the globe. The top left-hand corner shows you the type of process or typical training structure that our engineers go through within Schlumberger. So it's a 3-year program where they go through a fixed-step program before they move on to the more advanced programs. We've also, just touching on the Middle East Learning Centre, which is a relatively new centre for us that was opened up about 2 or 3 years ago. This is an excellent facility. It has 49 classrooms. It has actually 2 training rigs on the location, 10 wells, many different workshops. So if you look up at the top right-hand corner, the actual classroom is the well site, is the actual training rig. So it's a very hands-on approach to how we're managing that training. And just to give you an idea, in 2012, we had over 10,000 employees go through that training at that particular location. So I want to talk a little bit about how we're learning from incidents as well within Schlumberger. We do an okay job. We can certainly do better, particularly on our high potential incidents. We don't tend to put as much attention on high potentials as we should. So that's an area we need to work on. But I mean, if you look at the graph here, this gives you, this data covers data for all the industries in the US, which includes the oil and gas industry, but not exclusive to the oil and gas industry. And the ratios are based on 1 million lost time injuries and almost 6,000 fatalities. So there's lots of information that's gone into this. And what it shows is a couple of important points, that there's activities that have a statistically higher probability of resulting in fatalities than others, but typically we have less opportunity to learn from those fatalities. So the ones in the left-hand corner, if you like. So Schlumberger developed what they call an alert package to look at lessons learned from these types of incidents. And basically the package consisted of a structured 4-page incident description with speaker notes, as well as an interactive training video which runs for about 15 to 20 minutes for the incidents, and also stops you at certain spots during that incident process to ask you what happened next, what could we have done to prevent this incident. So again, very interactive, gets you thinking, and this is something that we've done for all these major incidents and our major high potentials. So this has been a very effective measure of training for us. So a little bit on the segment approach. So this is one of our segments within Schlumberger, which is our integrated project management segment. So this just gives you an idea on the types of documentation that's come out since post-Macondo for this particular segment. So again, very detailed SOPs, toolbox guidance, tools, checklists, etc. have all been implemented. So this is something we're doing across the segments that that are basically affected by well barrier control, etc. So not all segments would have this sort of detail, but this is certainly the case for our IPM group. We also recently implemented through the IPM group, again this is just one segments approach, so it's not a broad, across the board approach for us, but it's the one segments approach is looking at some of the RIRs and which are our risk identification reports and observation interventions that we're raising at the rig site. And this is also from the VP level down, so it's got very high level focus. You can see on the left is the announcement from our VP for IPM. And it really captures the best captures per month related to process safety, either through, as I said, either through our observation intervention program or our risk identification reports. So it's really examples where we've stopped the job either at a client location or at our own location, and that's something we really want to promote, right? Because we've still got a long way to go for some of our employees to have that confidence to actually stop the job if they feel it's unsafe. So it's an active area for us that we're really focusing on. So also just looking at some of the training that's being done by the IPN group. So we've obviously 100% training on our observation interventions. We've had project managers, HSE managers present to all our IPN managers, frontline supervisors, so it's very much a top-down approach. We have the monthly IPM reviews, and we have awards for the best sort of process safety observation intervention. So we're really, as I said, really trying to focus the attention in that area. So looking at some of the other things we're doing in terms of management field visits. So as I mentioned, we've had over 3,000 field visits in 2012 alone by senior management. So we're really trying to not just focus on personal safety, but have them look at process safety, give them training on what they need to do, brief them prior to the visit. So we're really getting the attention on process safety when they go out to the field. So again, something we're really driving. We're capturing those process safety events through that lessons learned alert package that I highlighted in the previous slide. So the attention's there, which it needs to be. Okay, so just a couple of more slides to finish. So just looking at our successes, future improvements. So in terms of training, focus on traceability, risk management, design, etc. These are areas that are fairly strong for us, and a lot of time and resources have gone into that. We've still got work to do on the right-hand side, on critical equipment suppliers, working with our contractors, and these are active lessons for us. Just on the final slide, it's I finished up with this slide, which we started with earlier on in the slide. We've still got a long way to go. We've made some significant improvements in the last year or two. But challenges remain for us. We need to do a much better job on learning from past incidents. We've made some significant inroads, but we're still not there, particularly when we have new employees coming into the organisation, when we have new companies coming into the organisation. It's important we revisit those lessons learned as well. So that's something we're actively looking at. We also need to do a much better job on our high potential incidents. It's basically a free hit for us to really get down to the basic and root causes of the incidents, and we need to focus more in that area as well. We also need to continue to promote leadership at the rig site. I think we're making some good inroads in that area, but again, it's a focus for us. And we need to look at the stop work drill scenarios as well. We've done some good work on stop work drill scenarios, but again, it's giving the employees the confidence to go in and stop the job if they feel it's unsafe. And that's really, when you've got a lot of different cultures, a lot of different personalities, behavioural type issues, it's really a focus that we can't give up on. It's something that takes time, but we're getting there. With that, I'll leave it. Thanks very much.